back to Rhythm Railroad. I'm doing a September-October update video. The reason I'm doing it this way is because September has been a little bit crazy. I'm a music teacher and football season is in full effect with the marching band and everything that I have to do. So I've been a little busy and I haven't had a lot of time to work on things, on the layout, but I have enough done to be able to at least do a short update video. So let's get started. What I'm showing you here is my last project, I guess, last layout design project. And what I mean by that is that this was the last section that I had left open, for trackage. Every other section of my layout right now has some kind of track work done, so everything's functioning. There might still be some bare wood, in some of the sections, but this was the last element. So what I've been doing here, obviously, is a coal loading facility. And originally, the plan was to take the spur that I connected here to the main line, and I was going to split it into the three lines to go under the typical Walters building loading facility. Everybody has this one, and as you know, it's connected to this other part of the building that has 3 bays on it. But I decided to modify the building and obviously scratch build a flood loader type building. Now the reason I did this was because I watched the video on YouTube from the name of the YouTube channel is NS Modeler 24, and it's a father-son layout. They do HO scale Norfolk Southern trains. And they do incredible work. And the thing that really got me was their flood loader system. So kudos to them. It's just amazing work what they've done there. And I'm not trying to plug them. I don't even know who they are. I've just been watching their videos. But you should definitely check them out and subscribe to their channel, because every time that bell rings for me, it's some amazing work coming through. Anyways, so the other part of it was that I was very, very worried about how to build a flood loader, because there's so many things that can go wrong, and you can make such a huge mess so quickly. So the design part was crucial, basically, to how this was going to work. I didn't, it's not like you just buy a kit and you put it together. So I had to, number one, create some kind of hopper system to be able to load the cars. So I took the hopper that came with the Walters building. It's like a three hopper combination, and I used that as my main way of loading the cars. So I'm going to try to get real close here. So as you can see, that's the first bay, I guess, or the first hopper of the 3. And what I did is I used the whole hopper because I needed something to hold the coal and give it enough momentum with the weight behind it to push the coal through. But what I did also is that I added a system using a servo to be able to control the gate to open and close the coal gate. The only thing is that I had to be able to do it manually, and I had to have 100% control of how much coal was coming out of that hopper. Why? Because, I don't know if it's an N scale thing or if it's an HO scale thing, but typically when I see HO locomotives run, they can run them really, really slow, like on step 1. And generally speaking, if they have a stay alive installed, they'll keep running no matter what, even if they have like a little bit of a little dirt on the track, or the wheels on locomotives are a little bit dirty as well. But with N scale, it's so finicky, and I know they make the stay alive things for the N scale, but there's just very little room to put them in there. And from what I understand, they don't really work as far as keeping the engine running necessarily. So I had to, take all of that into consideration, because I wasn't about to modify every single engine that's coming through here. So I had to be careful. But you know, I have tested this obviously, and it all works. That's why I'm doing this video. Otherwise, I wouldn't be showing this. But the thing that I came into, the problem that I ran into was that as you're running the train through slowly, you know, I have to deal with the fact that it might stutter, it might, you know, stop. If it hits like a frog and it's not quite, you know, making contact or whatever. You know, there's a lot of things that I was thinking about that I've experienced just from running my trains, and since they're running so slow, you know, again, I can run into a problem with that as I'm flooding the hopper. So with this servo system, I was able to hook it up to a very cheap servo tester, which is what I've been using for everything basically, for all my turnouts and things like that. And I have all kinds of control. I mean, I could open up this thing millimeter by millimeter. Oops. So that's when I decided, okay, if I can get that system to work, then I'll be okay. Even if I have to, you know, make other modifications around it, but at least I know that the main part of the hopper I can control. So then I got excited. Then I was like, all right, if I can make that work, then I think I can keep things going. So I'm going to basically, I'm just going to take this apart a little bit so you can see what's going on here. So let me just have everything kind of just floating here right now because I'm just mocking it up to see how I'm going to lay it out. But what I did with this building is obviously I detached it from the other part. I had it glued here, but I just broke it off because this used to be on my old layout. And then this is just, you know, styrene. I added just like a vent here and a few windows, just from what I've seen flood loaders look like. And then I ordered a Shapeways conveyor belt that's gonna go into here. I'm gonna open up a door there, and it's gonna go all the way down, but we'll talk about that later. Let me just take this out. This is basically what covers the mechanism. And what you'll see here is a very simple and primitive looking system to load the coal. So as you can see, this is the hopper that I was talking about. And before I talk about what's feeding it, here's a servo that I was telling you about. And I attached it with just like a U-channel. It's like a metal U-channel. Let me see if I can move the train back a little bit. And I'm not gonna be able to do it that way. Anyways, so yeah, you can kind of see it there. The servo just slips in to there, and it holds in place. And then the only reason I have a screw right next to it is because I have to be able to guide the mechanism. Now the mechanism is basically designed from, it's just like a little strip of styrene. I put a hole in it, and I just fed the servo arm through it, and then just, you know, clamped it into place. I have to still trim that stuff, but I clamped it into place with a little piece of wire under and over. This way I never lose it as it moves. The other nice thing about those metal channels is that you can slide the servo up and down, but it still grips enough to stay in place. And then if you know, once you decide you're going to leave it there, you can always glue it into place. But that's how that works. And the other nice thing about those channels is that you can run the wire internally through there. So it's out of the way, and it's neat, and it's, you know, it all kind of worked out for some reason. What you see up here, it's just a locking mechanism that I had put in here before, but it's actually, I'm not going to be using it, so I'm probably going to take that out. But it was just like a little latch to close the lid that I had on here. I thought I was going to need a lid, and it turns out I don't. The coal actually stops itself from overflowing. And again, we'll talk about that in just a bit. So what happened, let me just, I don't want to open up the container necessarily. Well, I guess I could. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I got the other hoppers out of the way, just another close look at the metal channel that I was telling you about. And I used that piece of wood in the back to basically anchor the whole system. So that block is not only holding the channel in place, but it's also kind of centering and leveling everything out. And then the top block is holding the hopper in place. I had a little bit of a problem because originally I had a strap around, like a copper or brass strap that was just, you know, holding it down, but it was too flimsy, and it was moving the whole hopper when I was using the servo. So what I did is I filled it with wood, but I still left a ramp to allow for the hopper to have room there to collect the coal. And then I drove a screw through it so that now it's like completely solid in there. It's not going in there. It's not going anywhere. Just to show you what goes on here. So I have two empty hoppers here. And obviously, you know, I've already loaded an entire train to test it a few times. But as the train comes through slowly, what happens is that strip of styrene that's connected to here runs all the way through these tiny channels that I made just over the mouth of the hopper. And obviously the last one is the only one that's going to get, you know, that's going to slide open. The other ones are going to slide also, but there's nothing in there, so it doesn't matter. It's just guiding it so it keeps it nice and straight. And thank goodness I did that, because I was just going to modify this just for one hopper, but then the guide would not have been as straight as what I have it now. It probably would have had some lateral movement, and it probably would have caused more problems. But I'm just going to get real close here. Let me just flip the camera over. So now you can see it better at this angle. So the servo tester, I just have temporarily on here. And as I turn the wheel, it moves the servo back and forth, which then pulls the strip back and forth. So I'm just going to show you first from here, from this angle, what I mean by that. So you can see the strip running all the way through. So as I open it, you can see this motion there. And obviously once that little part clears the mouth of the hopper, then the coal comes through. So let me just show you from this angle what I mean. See? So I can open and close. And obviously, if I only want to load a little bit of coal, I could just, you know, modify it as I want. So, you know, I can even get just a little bit comes out, or let me just make more room here. You know, I can just totally open it up and close it. What's happening on this end, let me just flip the camera again. So what's happening on this end, obviously, is that I just got another hopper on there here so that I have room. You know, the arm is pivoting this way, and it's pulling the strap up like that. So the screw is allowing the strap to stay in place. What I was running into originally was that before I had the screw there, when I opened it up, the distance was so big that when I pushed it back down, it was bending the strip and just going down, and it wasn't closing the gate. So I had like all kinds of disasters happen with coal everywhere because I couldn't get the thing to stop. And since this is a flood loader, it just keeps flooding. So, you know, as you can see, this looks identical to the way it did before, even though I've already loaded this amount of coal in. And that's because the container, which is a Coke bottle, and I'll show you that in a minute, is using the weight, the gravity, to push the coal through into the tube and into the hopper. But once it gets here, the coal is actually holding it. The coal itself is holding it from the weight, and it's keeping it from overflowing and just spilling over. So that's the basic concept of how the mechanism works and what I did to do that. The other thing that I did unintentionally with the blocks is that when I put the casing back up, meaning the building, between the hopper wall and the wood on the back, it's actually the same exact size as what the building's going to be. So I didn't really do it on purpose. It just kind of worked out that way. So it'll be nice because I could just slide, you know, once I finish the building up, I could just, you know, drop it in place. And then obviously, like you saw before, this just holds it even further in place, and then everything just, you know, goes up against that. So it's all working together nicely, you know, to make it you know, make it look like a unit. Okay, so that's that. Now here's the other thing. The track, I was gonna make a spur just to like hold some, you know, some more hoppers, but then I thought, well, what's the point? Like, that's not how it works. Well, generally what I've seen is that, you know, you use the track to run the unit train through, and then it's loaded, then you just leave. There's no reason to store anything here. So what I decided to do instead with this space is, what I'm going to do is, if you can see this line here, sorry, I have my notes. If you can see this line here, what I'm going to do is cut this out and lower it about that high, and then make this water. So it's going to be, you know, obviously this is going to be like a steel wall, like a metal seaport kind of thing there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a barge with coal there. And I'm going to leave this back space open so I can put a crane and, you know, whatever it is that they unload the coal with to make, you know, those giant coal mounds. And then, you know, the conveyor belt that I ordered is going to go from here all the way up to there once I open that hole there. Okay, and then, you know, it'll make more sense. You know, the coal's coming in with the barges, and it's getting all loaded up into the flood loader and onto the train. So there's no reason to put it there. Now, the reason I'm saying all that is because I feel like the more things you have in place on track work, the more problems you run into. So if I put another turnout here, you're talking now, okay, now it's another frog that I'm dealing with, and it's another, you know, jump in the track, I guess, so to speak. So I'd rather not even take that risk. Plus I'm dropping a little bit in elevation here to get down to that level so that I can get to what I designed here. So that's another problem, you know, because now the train is, you know, on a downward slope, and it could cause more issues. So that actually works out better because now I'm only dealing with that once the locomotives get here, and then, you know, this I've tested over and over again, so this is all working great. So I really don't have any problems unless it's dirty. Then sometimes the train stutters a little bit. Then the other part, this video is turning out to be longer than I thought. The other part is that I had already previously designed the yard so that it had rented space for the coal facility, which is this, you know, the black ballast here. So you can differentiate between the yard and their property. And what I did is I went a step further. So I'm going to pretend like, in my world, like this was the old facility, and it was just this, you know, they had the loader here, and there might have been some kind of like, you know, conveyor belt going out into wherever. And it shut down, but they kept the structure up. So now it's just storage. So once, I mean, if there are any unit trains that need to be stored, they would go here, and the locomotive can do the runaround through the yard. So this is all connected here. So you can take that turnout here and then run around, and then, you know, grab the train from the other end if you need to. So, you know, that'll make it one step further as far as operations. But, you know, I didn't want to put that on the other side because it really doesn't make any sense. All right, so moving back here, this is basically it. It's just going to be, you know, scenic, and I'm going to make the water and all that stuff. But that's basically the gist of what the facility is going to look like. And I think it came out pretty good. I mean, the only thing I'm not crazy about is the color of the building. Even though you know, the flood loader I'm using as a sample, as a guide, is pretty light like this, but it looks yellowish. Now that I'm looking at it on the camera, it looks a little yellow, and it's supposed to be like a very, very faded green, which looks that way live. Actually, when I'm looking at it with with a bare eye, or naked eye, it looks green. But Again, to the camera, it might be too yellow. So I might repaint that. I don't know. But I did weather it, so now I'm kind of like going back and forth whether I should or not. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you the train that I loaded. So obviously it came through here, and then it took the short line. Oh, and by the way, the main lines are really these two. So you can have trains running back and forth, and the short line is the one that's used for the unit trains to load. So the only traffic would be in the short line, which is a slow running track anyway, which with smaller trains, but the unit train is going to use it temporarily. So it came through here, and then right now I have it parked here. So with the exception of the two hoppers that I just used to demonstrate the system, there are 14 hoppers that were loaded, as you can see here. So the only thing, see, this is all, obviously it's all real coal or whatever, like real ballast. The only thing I'm not liking right now, which will be a modification, will be that, as you can see, this first one came out pretty good as far as the load, the way it looks. It's even and it's, you know, distributed all the way through. But some of them, you know, that happens, and some of them are terrible. Some of them are, you know, they have like that going on, or they have like that going on. And again, that all depends on the operator, which is me, and how well of a job, you know, they do. But from what I've seen in real loaders, there's a system that, you know, comes down into the car that levels it all out so that it comes out nice and neat, like these fake ones, which is what they're supposed to look like, I guess. But I'm going to add that somehow. I got to develop some kind of other mechanism to the front of this. So it's probably going to slip right under there so that it comes down and it acts as like a little leveler as the train comes through. It'll just kind of scoop everything into place. But again, I'm not sure if that's going to work. Now, the reason why I had to do it this way originally was because the locomotives they sit higher, they sit taller than the rest of the cars. So I had to clear the locomotives first, and that's why I had to make sure they were high enough. And then obviously, if I had some kind of like adaptable system that goes up and down, then I could bring it all the way down to the car height, and then, you know, level it out nicely. So moving on, the inside, or the loader for the loader is in my closet. Obviously, as you saw, I went through the wall. So, you know, the closet had already been used to run my tracks, the three main lines, or the two main lines and the short line. So that's still the same. The only thing I did was I added a spur here. So that turnout is what goes into the coal facility. And I added a guardrail here using a HO cork. I just stapled it on there. So that was easy. But I was afraid that on this end, the cars were going to fall right off the lip there. So at least now it'll hold it in place. And I got to fill that hole with something. Anyways, so they come through here. And then there's like an elevation change here also, obviously, because of the cork. It's got to get down to the right height. But it had to be a very, very slight and slow downward slope, so that the cars wouldn't uncouple. And then there it is. That's the hull and the servos and the whole system's there. So what's feeding the mechanism is this Coke bottle, which I just cut the top off basically, and I shoved it in the wall, and it's being held up, you know, with the tape. I'll come up with something a little bit more professional as far as the holding system, but the Coke bottle is staying. And then originally I had cut the hole in the wall just like as a hole, like it was just like that, and there was just a little pocket there. But what I realized is that even though I was using the same system, the angle of the Coke bottle was more tilted this way, so there wasn't enough force going down to push the coal through. So it was just basically stopping the flow as the I guess as the coal came to the funnel part, it was all getting clumped up there, and there wasn't enough force for it to like continue through. So I had to cut the hole all the way up and then shove the bottle in there. Thank God it's flexible. Let me just get more light here. So yeah, I just kind of shoved it in there. But as you can see, I can hold a lot of coal in there. You know, this is not even all the way full, but it's enough to create that slope and feed the funnel without causing the system to clog. So I guess, by the way, the only thing left to do here is I got to connect the frog here. It's an electro frog, so it is stuttering as it comes in, but it's not a big deal. So I guess what I wanted to say is that as the system, you know, comes through the wall here, and you see there's just like a hose there. That's what I had originally. It was just going to be a hose that was just going to push the coal through, but I had no idea those systems clogged like that. And then I tried all kinds of like really complicated mechanisms. I tried using like a motor to vibrate the bottle, because you know what I realized is that all I needed to do was tap it a little bit and it would unclog. It would let everything kind of flow through. But it wasn't working. You know, first of all, it was sloppy and it was loud and it was just obnoxious, and I wasn't gonna go with that. I also heard that if you have like a screw, like almost like a corkscrew system, it'll help, you know, push the material through. So I even put together this like auger type system. I went to the dollar store and I bought a cork, like a wine bottle opener. I just snapped the cork thing off and I shoved it in there, so it held it in place. It was perfect size. And then I just I bought this little cheap motor from Micro Center. It's just a geared, I guess, high torque motor, but it's super quiet. And I you know, I just basically put a pin through it, through the pipe there, and that's what makes it spin like that. And I had it working great, but it was actually making things worse, because then it was packing the material into the smaller part of the bottle instead of like feeding it through. It was just packing and packing and packing, and then by the time I went to unload, or rather load the train, it just wouldn't even flow. So right now it's at the perfect angle so that it just keeps kind of feeding through at the right pace, the right rate, I should say, and it's working really well. So sorry about the long-winded explanation. Just wanted to get through all the details of this. All right, so I'm gonna go through the layout a little bit more and show you the rest of the updates. All right, so from here, I'm going to take you over to the upper level where I have this covered hopper train. This is one of the new, well, it's not really new SD60s, but I had it for a while and I decided to weather it, and I thought that came out quite nice. So I'm happy with those results. And speaking of the upper level here, what was happening is that I had originally put a crossover right in here. There was a a right and a left going this way. Sorry, a right and a right going in the opposite direction. And it was supposed to be a reversing section, but since I was very inexperienced when I first installed that, I didn't realize that you had to have some kind of track in between so that it wouldn't short circuit, because the polarity here is this way, and then obviously on this side it's the opposite way. So it's not a double main, it's a single main that's going around and coming back this way. The loop is in there, in the other room, and coming back around this way. So I had to fix that. Now the only reason why I even needed a reversing section was because I have two facing industries and two trailing industries, including the ferry, which is the trailing. So I had to turn the train around, and the only way I could do it was using a siding, and I had to run the locomotives all the way through, all the way around. But you know, I've been running pretty long trains up here with like 40 cars, 45 cars, and it was just not realistic, and it was, I mean, whatever. But I just didn't like it. I don't know if realism is what comes into play here, because this is not realistic to begin with, that the tracks would be like that. So anyway, so what I did is I found a solution using a turnout here and using all of this track work here right into the siding to allow the 2 or 3 locomotives to switch, you know, polarities here. And that's working out nicely. So now I can run the train, you know, in one direction, go to, for example, my tank facility over there, backing up into it, come around, and then back up into the ferry. And then when I come around this way, this is one of the facing industries that I can't get to. So by taking that reverse loop, now the train's coming in this direction. As you can see, it's already set up this way because it took the reverse loop, and now I can back into this industry and switch out the hoppers there. So, and there's another one on the other side as well. So let me just take you to the other side anyway, because I do want to show you another locomotive that I weathered. I got another SD60, which it's an Atlas, but I love the way the other one runs, so I got another one. And I weathered this one a little bit less than the other one, but it's still, you know, still got some grime. I like grime. And, you know, it's nice that I can have this siding and I can have other trains pass by and, you know, switch back and forth. This is my grain elevator here. I'm still kind of playing around with that and seeing what's going to happen. So there's a reversing section there. So it allows me to jump from, obviously, from this track to this track, and vice versa. Connections there. So, if you haven't seen my tank facility, it's this here. There's another video on all of this. I thought that came out really nice. And I'm still not done with it. I still have a bunch of stuff to do, and I have some parts that I still have to put up. But it's all coming along really, really well. Obviously, I have to finish all the, you know, all the fascia board around and get everything looking neat and tuck the wires in and all that stuff. But like I said before, I do a little bit at a time here and there, and make sure that things are working. I'm not sure if I showed you this in the last video, but I was finally able to put my backdrop on. It's all glued up. It's all, you know, cut. So that I took the sky out, and now it looks much, much better, especially from this angle. So that's that. The reversing section is in the works. Now the only other thing is that I have to reverse it back, because now I'm running into the same problem that I was running into originally, which was once I reverse, now I'm stuck in that direction. So what I'm going to do is right out of here, I'm going to just make the track come more out here. So it's going to be like a little bit of a curve, and then I'm gonna make the turnout, you know, have a piece of track that's gonna connect into this track here. So you know you need a little space in between. So theoretically, this track will become the transfer track, and then I'll have the main coming out, you know, through the back there. So that's how that's gonna work. That's the other addition to my layout. I'll be back with the third one. Okay, so this one is simple. This I had already put in place, and then I had to take it down because I ran into a problem. So here under my layout, as you've seen in other videos, I have all my electronics down here with my block detection and my laptops there and all that stuff, command station, etc., etc. So I found that I wanted this to be kind of like the central command station where I have my throttle, like everything's here. And I had put in place a programming track that was attached to this phone, and then it was coming up this way, and then this was holding it up, kind of like a tabletop. But what ended up happening is that when I added the fascia, it dropped, you know, the wood really stops here. So it made it so much longer that when I brought the foam up, it was barely clearing here. So the locomotives couldn't clear this. So what I did is I basically flipped it upside down and backwards. And now it folds down this way. Now you're gonna say, well, what are you doing? Why do you have such a big circle, whatever? There's like another track in the middle. Well, it's just my own thing. Like, you know, what I realized is that when I was programming anything on my trains and my locomotives, I was using a straight track like this, and I put a re-railer in here just to like I can throw it on there quick, and that was great. So after I was done programming, you know, I wanted to be able to test the locomotive. So you only have this straight section of track. You can't really do much with that. So that's why I decided to just, you know, go out and get this loop, which by the way I paid $10 for on eBay. I found that it was used. I just set it up so that I could run the locomotives all the way around, and also speed match and do any kind of work that way. Break the locomotives in just by, you know, running them all in one place. So I made a switch here. This way I know what mode I'm in, whether I'm programming or I'm actually using it as layout power. And it's so much easier when I do that because I can program also on this track. So if I'm just doing something quick, I'll just throw it on here, you know, program it and then go back to the layout. But if I'm doing something that's going to require small modifications several times, I'll just put it on this track. I could program, test, and just keep going around rather than having to go back and forth and switching directions and all that stuff. So that's that. I know it might be too much for some people, but for me it works. So I'm going with that. And then, you know, once I'm done, I just flip it up and it's out of the way. You know, obviously this will have like a black cloth here, so you won't see any of this. But it's it's something that's new to my layout. All right. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is this meter that I installed here. This is it's called a R-ramp meter, or I guess railroad amp meter. And I installed this because I was in a little bit of I went into a little bit of a panic when something went wrong on my yard. I was getting these weird shutdowns and I guess shorts. They were registering as shorts only in my yard. And I have my yard in a separate power district using my PM42. So I know it wasn't the block detection. It was just something. It was either the circuit breaker was going, or it was the some kind of short on the yard. So after doing a bunch of research and asking people and testing things and unplugging things, Some people started suggesting some power drop issues, meaning I might have had to plug in another booster to increase the power just enough, so I wouldn't be causing the original power booster to shut down. But that wasn't the case at all. But in that panic, I had already ordered this thing, which now is nice because it's a nice thing to have anyway. You can see how much voltage is going to the track and what kind of amps you're pulling, especially if you're running a bunch of locomotives. And at any one time, I could be running, almost 20 locomotives at the same time here between both levels, and using consists and things like that. So it's nice. I'll know if I'm ever getting to that point, right? But obviously, it's working nicely. The other nice thing, which is kind of dumb, but I know when this layout is on, because once I turn the track power on, all this lights up. So it's a nice way to just know that. Sometimes the layout's on and I couldn't tell, just because I wasn't looking at the little light bulb that's over there. So that worked out nicely. So that's the last thing I've done. I know it's not a lot, but the coal facility took they took the bulk of the time. So I spent an hour here, an hour there, or less, chipping away at that, and I was able to get it done. So I'll leave you with that. That's the end of the video. If you like this video and you want to see more stuff about my layout, come check it out. Subscribe to my channel. It's Rhythm Railroad. Spell out the railroad part, and you'll see a lot more. All right, take care.